Hey folks, this is Arcaden with an overview of the new Expert and Expedition mechanics in 2 Point Museum's Fantasy Finds DLC. This system shakes up the expeditions a little bit, so the goal of this video is to help you get into it quickly, or if you haven't bought the DLC yet, to get a sense of how the new content plays. I will be showing and talking about some of the new content, so spoilers of that type. Otherwise, let's get going. The Fantasy Finds DLC adds a new fantasy expert with 4 subtypes. You could get a rogue, wizard, bard, or barbarian. I've heard of these before. Unlike the original experts, fantasy experts also come with 4 stats: strength, dexterity, intelligence, and luck. Each subclass has different rankings across these stats, and if you're familiar with RPGs, you'll be able to guess. Barbarians have high strength, rogues have high dexterity, wizards high intelligence, and bards high luck. These stats interact with the new points of interest on the Fantasy Scorched Earth map. So in vanilla 2 Point Museum, points of interest had specific events that could be countered by a skill that you would give an expert by training them. So you would train an expert in survival skills, and then this climbing accident event here would get removed, saving you from an injury. The new fantasy points of interest work similarly, but in this case the events are tied to the character's stats. So if you want to remove this transfissured event, your whole party will need to have a combined intelligence score of 10 or above. This system ends up being a bit more complicated than the other expeditions. Pretty soon, you'll see that some of these events require a surprisingly high amount in a stat, and you'll wonder how you could meet that. The answer is the game gives you tools to adjust these stats. There are 3 main ways to do that. The simplest is the leveling system. As your expert gains levels, they'll gain a skill point per level. You could then go into that character card and put that point into one of the 4 characteristics. The second way to manipulate your fantasy expert's level is through Mythical Gear. So there are points of interest on the fantasy map that have this little diamond symbol next to it. These expeditions can net you items called Mythical Gear that can then be given to a character to raise their stats. Now, Mythical Gear can serve as either an exhibit in your museum or a character stat boost. If you place the item in your museum, it generates buzz, acts like a normal exhibit, and can have specific effects, like the loot here encourages higher donations. If you decide to give it to an expert, the exhibit no longer generates buzz, but also doesn't require maintenance. You do have to keep it in the museum, so I made a room that I'm hoping will eventually look like the warehouse from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can have multiple of some items, like the bolt buckle boots, but other Mythical Gear has a characteristic called unique, and you can only have one of those in your museum or on a character at a time. These items can also give benefits to your in-house staff. Give the bolt boots to your security guard and he'll be faster. But they also give big stat bonuses that your experts are gonna need. For example, the bolt buckle boots give a 5 dexterity boost to my barbarian here, which helped with some of the early game expeditions. The wizard's chat hat gives a 15 intelligence boost. There's Mythical Gear for each of the main stats. Other items like the plot armor here can keep a specific expert from going MIA for a few seasons. The third way to increase your expert's stats is through potions. You find recipes for potions through game events and at specific points of interest. Potions can then be crafted in the workshop, but you need a fantasy expert who has been trained in potion crafting to do so. The potions take up your expedition cargo spot and provide a variety of bonuses. There are potions that give you bonuses to the specific stats, 15 to intelligence, 15 to dex, and so on. There are also some that increase experience gain or survey progress, which are great for non-fantasy finds expeditions as well. So how does all this play? Well, it comes together where the fantasy finds point of interest expeditions become like a little mini puzzle to meet the requirements. You'll have to use a combination of each of these methods to be able to safely go on expeditions. Here's one specific example of how this plays out. Upside Town here has 2 MIA events that require very high stats in intelligence and strength. There's also a pretty high dex event that could cause an injury. The expedition has space for 3 fantasy experts, so I assign my wizard enemy, who is wearing the hat that gives a 15+ bonus to intelligence. Then I assign my other wizard, Miss Bowstaff. I decide to ignore the dex event as it's just an injury, and for the 3rd slot I add my strongest barbarian, who is Chloe Batrastard. She has Nor's Hammer, Mythical Gear, giving her a plus 15 to strength. With these experts and gears, I'm still not making the requirements, but I got close. So, I craft and add a party potion, which is a potion that gives plus 5 to all of the expedition stats, and that gets me over the line. Potions and Mythical Gear are not optional add-ons. You'll need to engage with those systems to make many of the expeditions happen. So, as general advice, get to that mythical gear and potion recipes as soon as you can and continuously grind out potions. Right now I have 2 workshops in my fantasy wing where trained staff are pumping out multiple of each potion, so when I get to an expedition, I have options. In the early game, it could take a bit to figure out the right combination of experts and potions and gear, but by the time I got halfway through the map, it was getting pretty easy. That's the new Expert Expedition stat system, folks. This new feature means you'll be spending a bit more time in expedition menus, which isn't my favorite part of the game. But so far, the exhibits you get in return are really fun, and some of them even... Is that a chicken? If you want to see more 2-Point Museum content, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, please like, and if you want, subscribe. It's a big help as I'm still starting up this channel. I appreciate all the support so far. Happy museum building, and thanks for watching.